Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, March 26, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, guys, let you know that we are a family-friendly podcast. At least we try to be. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. Words do fly. Hey, it happens. But aside from that, we may also show some things that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, how do we start this on this wonderful weekend? Well, apparently the Democrats just can't seem to let it go. That old loving feeling, the one that just seems to always get away, that one ex you can't get over. Well, I guess you can't really call him an ex. You're still there. I'm talking about Joe Manchin. Yep, the one dude, aside from Kristen Sinema, who has single-handedly dismantled the entire Democrats' agenda for this current congressional season. Yes, that guy. It seems today that he is being reported that he is engaging with the Biden administration on a new climate and economic bill. But as you can see, the timeline's unclear. Supposedly, he's had informal talks within the White House regarding climate crisis, U.S. infrastructure, prescription drug costs, energy, tax changes, and deficit reduction that he could potentially support in a new version of this package. However, these are all informal talks with the White House. And all I could sit there and say the entire time is, what is the definition of insanity? Manchin does not care. Manchin is a walking conflict of interest. I have been saying that since he's opposed every bill the Democrats have pushed out, except the COVID age and anti-hate bill. Yeah, he approved that one. We give him one, so 1 out of 3. He didn't like the Build Back America plan because he said it costs too much. Okay. He also didn't like the voter registration act because of, districting, which keeps in mind he is in literally a for-Trump state, and yet he is somehow a Democratic governor acting more like a moderate, which is Republican-like. He didn't like the John Lewis Act, which again he said he supported, but again voted against it. Some would call that a Mitt Romney flip-flopper. What I'm pointing out, guys, still the fact of the matter is Joe Manchin, of all people. When I say he's a conflict of interest, keep in mind he's from West Virginia. West Virginia is a coal mining state, which means that the main producer, their main export, as well as the list of their jobs, is coal mining. I have said before, coal mining is a dying business. Right along up there with oil that's trying to hang on for its dearest life. Fracking's not too far behind it. Coal's a distant third. But with that being said, he's also still on the board of a very influential mining board of directors. And again, he is pretty much anything climate change, he's against. We just talked about it just a week ago that a woman that was about to be introduced to the reserve, in which she worked for the Federal Reserve before as a deputy, was about to be vetted. And again, Joe Manchin turned around and sat there and said, "Oh, well, I didn't like your answers on climate change," because she believed that climate change was real. I cannot make this up. So why am I always on Manchin? I'm on Manchin just because, simple fact of the matter, guys, it makes no sense that we are still trying to bargain with him. I have been saying this because of right now, you would think because political season, not only is it political season, it's midterm season, which means we are less than 6 months and counting away from where Republicans will try to basically break the simple majority. And I have been saying this on every podcast, and I'll keep saying this up until the midterm election. Democrats will have a harder time trying to convince people to vote for them because they do not have a lot of wins in the promised campaign column. They don't. You promised a minimum wage increase. It did not happen. You promised maternal leave with pay. It did not happen. You promised, some relief with student loans. That's kind of a halfway promise because you've only helped out some individuals, but then not all, while still saying that, yes, you should still pay your fair share, which in this economy where everything's going up with your paycheck might be a little hard to do. The point is, Democrats do not have a lot in the win column. And now you're about to go back to those very same people and say, well, trust us, we'll get it right. And I'm just like, you're going to have a hard time trying to convince them. Versus Republicans, who have no problem convincing idiots with short or with long-term and short-term amnesia to vote for them because they'll feel like, well, Republicans will do better because the Republicans said they will do better than Democrats. And for most people, it's like, well, they're conservative, I'm conservative, so I'm going to vote conservative. It's like shooting yourself in the foot and reloading. And most people who vote conservative are idiots. I mean, what other reason? It's almost like women, it's like black people and minorities that vote Republican. I'm just like, why? To me, it's like you're voting for the one party whose main agenda right now is against everything that you want. It would be almost as controversial as an LGBTQ person voting conservative. Why would you? They're against you. But again, we will still watch it. I just do not understand this whole thing of swaying Manchin and possibly send him over because as right now, Democrats are just scrambling. Like I said, it's like they need a win. They need a win badly. And of course, I don't know why, but Biden believes that the road to getting bills to his desk, unfortunately, goes through one person. And that just goes to show you the one thing that Republicans do have over Democrats. Say what you want about Republicans, but everybody toes the party line and votes one accordingly. Democrats, unfortunately, we have too many moderate Democrats in there and not enough progressive ones. You know who they are. Move right along, guys. Again, we always wonder why the January 6th commission is important. Well, it is important because, number one, you get to see exactly what's going on with everybody involved, especially the wife of a Supreme Court justice.
Text messages obtained by the January 6th committee and reviewed by the Washington Post, Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, repeatedly urges then-Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to keep fighting the results of the 2020 election. In one text, 1 week after Election Day, she reportedly writes, quote, "Help this great president stand firm, Mark. The majority knows Biden and the left is attempting the greatest heist of our history." In other texts, the Post reports, Mrs. Thomas pushes debunked conspiracy theories about the election. In one, referencing a non-existent, quote, sting operation in 12 battleground states involving watermarked ballots. According to the Post, during that period, a theory about watermarked ballots also circulated among the fringe group QAnon. During the 2 months covered by the text messages, Mr. Trump engaged in multiple legal challenges to the election results and frequently threatened to take them all the way to the nation's top court.
We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court.
None of the text messages mentions the court or Clarence Thomas directly, the Post reports, but critics argue the texts present a troubling conflict of interest for Justice Thomas, who was the lone dissent in an 8-1 January Supreme Court ruling, forcing Mr. Trump to turn over documents to the January 6th committee.
Should Clarence Thomas recuse himself from anything having to do with the 2020 election now?
Absolutely. It's clear that his wife was involved in efforts to try to overturn the election. There's a good possibility that he and his wife spoke about those efforts.
In an interview with the Washington Free Beacon earlier this month, Ginny Thomas said she and her husband stay in separate lanes, adding, quote, "Clarence doesn't discuss his work with me, and I don't involve him in my work." She acknowledged in that same interview she attended Trump's January 6th rally, but says she left before he spoke. She also denied a report that she was involved with planning the rally that ended with the violent attack on the nation's capital.
Garrett, you mentioned calls in some quarters for Justice Thomas to then recuse himself for any cases that have to do with this that come before the Supreme Court. What do the high court rules actually say about a circumstance like this one?
Well, Supreme Court justices are supposed to recuse themselves in cases of conflict of interest, but it's essentially the honor system. There's no one to enforce those rules. Now, Justice Thomas has recused himself in some cases before, but never in anything involving his wife's interests. And Savannah, all of this comes as Justice Thomas has been recovering from an infection that sent him to the hospital last Friday.
Garrett.
So all I can sit there and say the entire time is I love how they sit there and say, oh, well, we don't talk about our work. You're a married couple. Y'all all talk about each other's work. Now, it might be one-sided, but let's be honest. He talks about his work with you. You talk about your work with him. He knows. Even more so, the scary thing they said, and unfortunately that is the part that's true, is that yes, that they based on the honor system, that Supreme Court justices are not ordered to recuse themselves from cases they may have a conflict of interest in. And and unfortunately, it's like saying, so there's nothing that prevents a Supreme Court justice from being a part of something that he or she might have a conflict of interest in. Nope, nothing. No accountability from the highest court in the land. But again, I tell people, I said, this is why the January 6th commission is needed. Not because of the fact that we're finding out that it's just more than just politicians. You find out that everybody who has a way into Congress seems to have an opinion, albeit a more delirious and yet very extreme view, but they still have access. And being the wife of a Supreme Court justice, again, this is why I say if I was Clarence Thomas, yes, you should recuse yourself from any and all cases involving the January 6th commission, because if push came to shove, you could have ruled on the fact that your ruling could have made Trump a 2-term president, which is right now scary as hell. Even though right now he's still out, somehow dodging lawsuits, and yet but in 2 years he could try running again. It is a scary ass thought. But speaking of things that are scary, it amazes me so that when it comes to the price of gas, I know a lot of people, I know the national average right now is, I think it's like $4.24. But I know in some places they're looking at $7 and $8, but it is coming down. But the blame game starts because we knew, like I said before, everybody looked at Russia. Russia's producing our oil. No, Russia is the number 2 producer of oil in the world. Excuse me. Russia is the number 2 producer of oil in the world. Yes. Iraq being number 1. However, the United States of America only gets 8% or used to get 8% of their oils from Russia. Now, it is the understanding, like I said before, and I have to keep repeating myself, really for a lot of people out there, the president does not control gas prices. OPEC does. OPEC and oil companies do. Even more so that why are not oil companies in this pandemic actually drilling more? Well, it's one big ass blame game.
And Russia's invasion of Ukraine was imminent, the fossil fuel industry anticipated a rise in demand and surging prices, and the political blame game ramped up.
Democrats want to blame surging prices on Russia, but the truth is their out-of-touch policies are why we are here.
The blame was pinned on climate policies for hampering the oil industry's ability to increase supply.
We need to be ramping up. We need to be ramping up right now.
Through its lobbyists, the fossil fuel industry also publicly called for ramping up production to ease Americans' pain at the pump.
The most important thing that we can do right now is really focus on increasing supply.
But audio from several fossil fuel companies' calls with investors are in stark contrast to those public comments. Instead, companies pledged higher dividends and stock buybacks to investors as Americans were hit with soaring gas prices.
Our cash flow-driven return of capital framework uniquely prioritizes our shareholders as the first call on cash flow generation, not the drill bit.
That's Marathon Oil CEO on February 17th, when the national average for gas prices was around $3.52 per gallon. That same day, Pioneer Natural Resources told investors this.
We're not going to change our growth rate. We think it's important to return cash back to the shareholders.
The day before Russia invaded Ukraine, Diamondback Energy's CEO also told investors they won't risk profits by increasing supply.
No one wants to see that shareholder return program, put at risk with volume growth.
After a decade of dismal financial returns, including the pandemic, Diamondback also told investors the profit windfall they're experiencing is the moment investors have been waiting for. And on the day Russia invaded Ukraine, Occidental Petroleum CEO put it bluntly.
We have no need and no intent to invest in production growth this year.
CNN reached out to all of these oil companies, but did not get a response.
They don't want to spoil the gravy train. They want to keep the profits flowing.
There are some in the industry that have made statements regarding not being interested in ramping up production, but I think those are offset by many in the industry that have expressed their intention to ramp up production.
To hear their lobbyists speak, they're sort of being held down by government.
The vast majority of U.S. oil production takes place on private land, not federal lands or waters. And despite the Biden administration's emphasis on clean energy, it has approved more permits to drill on federal land in its first year compared to each of Trump's first 3 years in office.
Well, there's nothing more that can be said at that point except the obvious. And let's just be honest. When it comes to oil CEOs and saying reduce it, let's actually increase the production, help the American people. Our responsibility is to the shareholders. You very influential people that invest in us, the shareholders. Our first responsibility is to you. And I love how that one journalist said it best. They don't want to do anything because it's profit for them. They are literally price gouging still at the pump and making a crap load of money. And I just think it's 6 ways of wrong. Now, granted, the U.S. government cannot step in and tell a company how things can be ran to a certain extent. But when you have oil companies out there, then, of course, as of right now, we're still in the dinosaur juice until we start actually start embracing and enforcing more clean energy. They have us by the balls. They really do. And again, Kevin McCarthy is an idiot. I don't know how he is House Minority Leader, but he's an idiot. Even more so that it was not the current policies. Because if you haven't noticed, Biden actually did more as far as he actually, like I said before, as the graph showed he approved more drilling on federal lands than Trump did. But what policies is Kevin McCarthy talking about? Oh, the clean climate policies, which actually banned fracking and actually kept certain companies from drilling in areas that can cause environmental accidents. I mean, it's not like Deepwater Horizon can happen again, or the Exxon Valdez can happen again, or the many other hundreds of oil spills that have caused severe damage to our ecosystem. Maybe that's what he's referring to. But the thing I don't get out of this is, even Robert Reich said it best. Why not institute a windfall profit tax? Because if these companies are going to literally screw us these companies are going to literally screw us at the pump, then yes, they should pay the price of admission like we all do. But even more so, it just goes to show you that these oil companies and corporations simply do not care unless you're a shareholder or a stakeholder. Or is it shareholder? Probably shareholder, because stakeholders for something else. But again, until we start embracing these other forms of energy, unfortunately, they will still have a say, until we make a lobby in Congress illegal. Moving right along, guys, I did want to cover the Supreme Court nominee, and I apologize for completely destroying your name, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, at the point of this, guys, the Senate confirmation hearing for her has reached its 4th and final day, and they're now in deliberation. But I did want to go back and actually show, number one, the very poise of this African American woman, and the fact that she actually may make history as the first appointed black African American judge, who was a woman to be appointed to the highest court in the land. But here's the thing that she had to endure that I keep saying this whole entire time, because by my research into Judge Jackson, she has done more. She has had more experience. She has had more education and exposure than the last 2 Supreme Court appointees combined. And these were the questions that she got from Republicans.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson facing heated questions from Republicans charging she's soft on crime.
Why did you sentence him for half the amount?
You're not recognized, Senator.
Pointing to cases where Jackson handed down sentences for child pornography offenders that were shorter than prosecutors recommended.
One of the most effective deterrents is one that I imposed in every case and that judges across the country impose in every case, which is substantial supervision. Any of these defendants.
Judge, you think it is a bigger deterrent to take somebody who's on a computer looking at sexual images of children in the most disgusting way is to supervise their computer habits versus putting them in jail?
No, Senator, I didn't say versus.
That's exactly what you said.
Jackson's sentences were in line with 70% of federal judges. Late last night, Republicans pressed Jackson on cultural issues too, including transgender rights.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah,
I can't.
you can?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of the-
If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the
All right.
law and I decide.
Late today, Jackson becoming emotional as Cory Booker praised her historic nomination.
You have earned this spot. You are worthy. You are a great American.
And tonight, Judge Jackson says if confirmed, she'll recuse herself from an affirmative action case next term involving minority admissions policies at Harvard, where she serves on a policy board.
Now, right there, guys, should kind of tell you everything you want to know. Because number one, like I said before, that was day 2 of the questions that she ran into. But what killed me out of all this was, number one, the questions Republicans had for, because, you know, Republicans, they felt like their Trump-appointed Supreme Court justices, Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, were treated unfairly by Democrats. They weren't. Brett Kavanaugh had a case of alleged sexual assault against a woman in his younger days, and yet did everything he could to not talk about it, and yet invoked, and I'm not saying he did, but let's just be honest, conservatives, along with Trump, who was president at the time, did hamstring the FBI as far as what they can look into or who they can talk to, and very quietly sweeping it under the rug. Amy Coney Barrett was a religious freak. She was a religious freak, extreme religious by some definition, because she kept on talking more about her faith, which was not any of the questions the Democrats asked, but the more really questionable thing she sat there and said was that when it comes down to her faith and the law, that she will follow her faith first and the law second. Not something you should say when you're a Supreme Court justice. And yet, because of the unique situation that the Republicans had with control of the Senate and the presidency, they were able to ramrod those two appointees in. Whereas Ketanji Brown, who in my opinion has been, actually not my opinion, you can't argue with the facts. You can look up her accolades yourself and compare them to the last two. She actually has more experience, more education, and more exposure than the last two appointees combined. And yet, these were the questions that were asked of her. Like I said before, guys, I say it once and I'll say it again. Not to quote Scandal, but you know, that one line that you have to be twice as good to get half of what they have. And for most Black people, we have to be damn near perfect. We have to be. You know why? Because when you have nothing on you, when you have no skeletons in your closet, when you don't have a secret love child or a mistress or a gay lover, because conservatives don't like saying the word gay, but they certainly do hate it. When you don't have any of that in your closet, they have to attack your character. They have to attack your record. They have to attack your ruling. They have to attack your beliefs. Why? Because they have to find some kink in the armor that sit there and says, oh, she's not the best one. Considering the fact that Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh were definitely not choices that should have been made in the Supreme Court. They were just honestly there inconvenient to basically throw the entire court to be leaning right, which we now see what happens when you have a conservative leading court, when they can circumvent some things like legal abortion. Just saying. But Ketanji Brown also just said, but her recusing herself from a case involving minority issues with a Ivy League school, again, immediately recusing herself. Clarence Thomas, we're still waiting on you. But again, we'll follow that up as long as we see that the confirmation vote should be happening soon, and we all hope that history will be made, because again, perception is everything. Moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this story as well, and something that's a little puzzling. That President Biden did announce yesterday that the U.S. will accept 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. To meet this commitment, we are considering the full legal range of legal pathways to the United States that includes U.S. refugee admissions, programs, parole, and immigrant and non-visa immigrants. They also said that the commitment to take in 100,000 Ukrainian refugees was not tied to any particular time frame. Why does this sound familiar? I say this before because, I don't get the whole thing, and I'm not trying to knock what's going on. Humanitarian efforts should be done. But here's the thing about America. You need to fix your immigration system first. We've seen it with Mexico. We see it with Mexico where people were fleeing, where people not only flee from Mexico, but from South America and actually made their way to the U.S. border. And what were they met with? National Guard, fencing in some areas, and being told to stay in Mexico while their asylum papers are figured out. Now, say how you feel about immigration. I mean, we are a land of immigrants, so we really should not be discriminating against anybody. But the problem we're going to be running into is, and I say this with full honesty, our immigration system sucks. It does. It takes too long. I said it takes too long to vet an individual. It takes then at the same time, they're not given asylum only in extreme cases. And at the same time, there are still people 10 years later still trying to get their immigrant status done. We need a better system. Because again, I say, look, the more the merrier. We are a nation of immigrants. We are. I get no issue with 100,000 Ukrainians coming over and relocating the U.S. Just in the case I have no problem with 100,000 Latinx individuals moving in. Just I have no problem with African immigrants. They should all be welcome here. It's not like we're running out of room anytime soon. But the problem is the immigration system. Much like the VA system, two of the biggest systems that we have in the U.S. are woefully needing of a restructure and redesigning, because if we start taking this stuff on and ignoring the problem, it's just going to get significantly worse. But I'm never against welcoming refugees when a lot of us actually are ancestors of ones who got picked up and were brought here against our will. But moving right along, guys, I did actually want to cover the story as well, because everything is going up but your paycheck, but unfortunately the food crisis will continue.
In the U.S. and the world bracing for food shortages as the war in Ukraine rages on. President Biden, speaking to NATO leaders in Brussels Thursday, said because of sanctions on Russia, food shortages are coming.
The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well.
The U.S., Canada, and Europe are major wheat producers, but Ukraine and Russia produce about 1/3 of the world's supply. And less food means higher prices on top of already high inflation rates. Groceries are already about 8% more expensive than they were last year. And those expenses are not just hurting consumers, but also food banks like this one in Boston.
We used to be able to buy chickens for 80 cents a pound, somewhere in there. Now it's like $1.50 a pound. And so that limits our ability to buy more food and distribute more food to the agencies.
In Tennessee, the governor is pitching a plan to provide relief to shoppers by suspending the sales tax on groceries for 1 month.
Let Tennesseans keep some of that hard-earned money and do so by suspending the grocery tax for a time.
The U.S. is producing less wheat than it used to. About 44 million tons were harvested last season, compared to 50 million 3 years ago. To help avert a potential worsening crisis, President Biden is urging European leaders to end trade limits on shipping food abroad.
We are in the process of working out with our European friends what it would take to help alleviate the concerns relative to food shortages.
As to why the U.S. is producing less wheat, factors include the drought and farmers switching to more profitable crops. Mona? And
so again, it's amazing to me where everything always is profit driven. At the same time, whatever happened to all those farmer subsidies that Trump was just handing out like candy? That, farmers have moved on to more productive crops, and I can't knock them for that. That's what they're supposed to do. I mean, if you're not getting exactly what you get for the work that you put in, I can't blame them for that. But now we're seeing this other hand of capitalism when it's unregulated is bound to happen. That America went from being a mass producer of exporting goods to importing goods. And we see now that it does not take much to throw a cog in the wheel to basically disseminate all of that. And again, this is the reason why, guys, I keep pointing out things will not get better until we actually, face facts. The only way this is going to get better is that we have to go back doing a lot of things. Now, I've been telling people this. I said, look, if you have the ability, if you got some space, whether you're in an apartment or you got your own backyard, it is time to start. If now is not a time to start growing your own garden, I don't know what is. Now, if you got space for a farm, hey, buy a cow. Just saying. Or, start, like I said, a lot of things a lot of people have found out, like shopping local. Like instead of going to your grocery store, if you got a local meat market, go there. You'll get better prices. If you have a farmer's produce, I know like in Tennessee, we have a farmer's market. Go there, get your produce locally from farmers. If anything during this pandemic has shown us that a lot of people have found different ways of being able to obtain what they need without actually going through the large retail trade grocery stores, even though there are plenty of food deserts out there in America. But again, this is why I keep on saying, instead of us, pleading for the other countries to be mass producing to produce more, why don't we actually start with doing it at home? Why not give incentive for more wheat producing if that's what we need? Why don't we give more producing to steel, to lumber, if that's what we need? I would just think that if you're trying to get yourself off the exporting side of the world, why not give incentive to those who want to start it here in your own country? Just point that out. And speaking of things in our own country, our Madam Vice President Kamala Harris is rolling out with the Biden administration to finally tackle the housing crisis, specifically the appraisal process in the housing, especially. Let me try it again. For the appraisal process in the mortgage industry, specifically for minorities, because if you guys haven't noticed, it's a little harder when you're not white to go after a house or get funding for a house or get appraised for a house without having your color being used against you or any type of tactic that would lower the value of your own home for someone else to make money.
Historically, many communities of color, however, have been prevented from taking full advantage of the wealth-building power of homeownership. Appraisals are meant to be fair and objective estimates of the market value of a property. We needed to have an appraisal of our homes to refinance. And we were shocked at the price of the appraisal when we received it. We then requested a second appraisal and asked a friend who was white if she would stand in to meet the appraiser. This time, the appraisal we received came in 50% higher than the initial appraisal, almost $500,000 difference. Because their homes are undervalued, because understand there's a real consequence. Black and Latino people often have to pay more for their mortgage, receive less when they sell the home, and are less able to access home equity lines of credit. Our administration will continue to fight to ensure that all homeowners and home buyers in our nation are treated fairly.
Okay, so I'm trying to be nice. It's Friday. It's literally the weekend. I'm trying to be nice, but anybody wonder how effective Kamala Harris has really been? Don't get me wrong. Made history as Madam Vice President, the first Madam Vice President in our nation's history. African American woman. I'm all for that, but how effective really has she been? Do not get me wrong. It's just that I see her and the administration are trying to tackle this crisis. But this has been going on since the beginning of the house. Since the beginning of really the American dream of owning your own home, actually. Minorities have always gotten short end of the stick, whether buying, selling, or being appraised. It's just amazing now that we're still in 2022 and this is still happening. So what? And again, they're like, well, we're looking into ways to get this done. I'm like, you guys literally and figuratively, being lawmakers, could turn around tomorrow and say, look, if the housing, the mortgage, the home loan industry, the entire kit and caboodle, then yes, it needs to be overhauled and regulated to this. being lawmakers, you guys can basically draft a law and put this in for Joe Biden to sign in days. But I wonder, because right now it's a lot of lip service. Oh, you guys know. It's like, I mean, we heard that story. That's not the only time we've heard a black couple turn around to there and say, oh, well, our appraisal for our home was very low, but then we had we used a white friend and our appraisal came back at least 50 to 70% more than what we were given. Now ask yourself that one question. Because what else can you think of that if a black couple is looking to get their homes appraised or to look for a home or to purchase a home or anything of that nature, you don't think color doesn't play a factor in that? It does with some of these mortgage companies and these banks. And I come back to banks because that's what it usually comes back to. These mortgage companies and these banks work hand in hand because when they realize that they can get more money by basically squeezing minorities, that became common practice. Now, we can't say specifically what company's doing it, but they know who they are. Even more so, I just wonder how effective Madam Vice President Harris is going to be with this, and what steps is the Biden administration going to take? Because right now, as I said before at the beginning of this podcast, Democrats do not have a lot of W's in the win column. But we will follow that as it goes along. The last story I got, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment, unfortunately, is involving police officers who stun-gunned a man 10 times to death. And we now have news from that as far as some officers being fired and some officers keeping their jobs but being retrained.
Had various charges of policy violations, and based on that is what the final discipline came from.
The public safety director confirming the firing of 5 officers involved in the Jim Rogers investigation. He declined to identify the officers, but multiple sources tell Target 11 among those fired, Keith Edmonds, who tased Rogers 10 times, and Pat DeCero and Greg Boss, who drove Rogers to the hospital. 3 officers were reinstated but must undergo retraining. The mayor today at the news conference offering his condolences to the Rogers family.
Mr. Rogers deserved to live a life of joy. He deserved to live alone. And he didn't deserve to lose his life at the hands of police officers. What his life could have been will stay with me as long as I am the mayor.
Now, the mayor did say he didn't deserve to lose his life at the hands of police officers. Any response to that?
I don't think there's evidence of that. I think there was an interaction with police, but I don't think there's evidence of that at this stage that we're aware of.
The police union president pointed to the medical examiner's report calling Rogers' death accidental. He says the union will appeal all 5 firings to arbitration. The Rogers family, meanwhile, issuing this statement on the firings, quote, "The family is pleased with what they consider to be a substantial first step in the direction of justice and accountability." It goes on to say, "We look forward to substantial changes in the City of Pittsburgh Police Department to ensure that this never happens again." Rick Earl, Channel 11.
So it amazes me where, again, whenever you get a police union rep or someone speaking on behalf of the officers, it's never the officer's fault. Oh, well, if you look at the medical examiner's report, it says his death was an accident. If you're tased 10 times, keep in mind, stun gun is an electrical device that pumps electricity through you to subdue you. It also sits there and says, if you stun somebody enough times, yes, you can possibly kill them. Because electricity, whether it's 5,000 or above, can stop your heart. Those automatic defibrillators, they can start your heart. They can certainly stop it. But it amazes me that those 5 officers, 3 of them, because the 5 officers were fired. Out of those 5 officers, 2 were fired, 3 were allowed to keep their jobs, only because those 3 got into the hospital and tried to resuscitate them. Now, again, how many more stories are we going to see like this till we finally realize that police overhaul is needed? That, we need to stop having this gasp when it's like law enforcement needs to be retrained. We need to stop clutching our pearls when someone says defund the police, not understanding that defunding the police means that you're investing more into the community than actually taking away from cops, because cops already get too much and they're already militarized as it is. That being said, however, that yes, in my mind, you still, if you want to be a hairstylist, contractor, plumber, or contractor, or even an anesthesiologist, you still will train longer in that profession than you will be in law enforcement. Because again, how many more times we're going to keep seeing the same thing happen over and over again till finally something gets said by law enforcement to where we don't start hearing, our officers are doing a great job. No, because the good officers, like I said before, and feel free to argue with me if you will, but the good officers are rarely around because they're too busy getting redistricted, pushed out the door, or resigned. The bad officers are the ones that are getting promoted. That's all I'm saying. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our feel-good segment because usually on the Frack we got here, we cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes we can lose faith in humanity, but hey, it's the weekend. Hopefully the weather is better where you're at because we want to leave you guys out some good vibes, some good positivity, and things of that nature. And I think with these three stories, this first one I actually did do on Wednesday, where again, it's just a guy just wanting his acknowledgement for his education, and the fact that it took this long to get it. It's heartbreaking, but for what this man has done what he has done is achieved. That is a moment in itself. Check it out.
A truly remarkable story this weekend. A 101-year-old man finally receiving his high school diploma. ABC's Zachary Keish has the story.
This morning, there's a new high school graduate with a little bit more experience than all the others.
Presentation of the store normal school honorary diploma to Mr. Merrill Pickman Cooper.
Mr. Merrill Cooper had dreams of becoming a lawyer, but his high school education was cut short because his family couldn't afford his tuition. In a surprise ceremony in Jersey City, Cooper received that precious diploma at 101 years old.
I'll never forget this day.
Recognizing the void, after all these years, his family spent months coordinating with the school, now operated by the National Park Service. The son of a deeply separate and unequal America, despite the tough times, including lack of access to free education, Mr. Cooper carries the knowledge of our history.
My senior year in high school was one of the saddest times of my life.
But still, to this day, he has questions and heartbreak.
What was the reason that there was no high school for a black kid like me when I graduated from grammar school? What's the reason?
No struggle, no progress. Right?
No struggle, no progress. The heights of good and decent men are not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, go toiling upward through the night. And he that is satisfied with what he has all that he can ever hope to have. I just kept plugging.
And despite the obstacles, he found professional success in Philadelphia, becoming the first black union president for Philly's SEPTA transit workers. He's seen so many things change, and at the same time says too much has remained the same, but he never saw this coming. Some 80 years later, the distinction he deserves, high school graduate.
Thank you so much.
I thought that part was pretty cool, that even though he was denied his high school diploma, and the fact that he was still able to accomplish a lot in the face of adversity, all I'm saying is that that's just something you just cannot overlook, but give that man his flowers. Speaking of people who need to give their flowers, I've actually talked about this case with the same individual, the same man who gave $200,000 worth of free gas to Chicago. Well, he decided to up it. He donated $1 million this time.
I'm going to take the opportunity because I'm a single mother, a single parent, and these gas prices is ridiculous. It's like almost $5 per gallon.
And now I can't even get to work. That's how desperate I am. I am so thankful to Dr. Wilson. He has no idea how thankful I am.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you want to talk about acts of kindness? You don't get any bigger than that. I mean, you gave $200,000 worth of free gas out 1 week, and then you turn around and say, I could do better and do 1 million. I'm just saying, like I said before, random acts of kindness, man. If you have the ability to make somebody's life great, whether it's a minute, day, hour, or lifetime, go ahead and do it. The world can use more random acts of kindness. And $1 million worth of free gas is a big ass act of kindness. And finally, the last one I wanted you guys actually want to show as the last segment for this podcast, Cory Booker's Senator Cory Booker's statements to Ketanji Brown Jackson during her Senate confirmation hearing. I think is literally probably up there with one of the best "give her your flowers while she's in front of you" speech I've heard. Check it out.
New low. And what's especially surprising about this is it didn't happen last year. You were put on a court that I'm told is considered like the second most powerful court in our land. And you were passed with bipartisan support. Nobody brought it up then. Did they not do their homework? Were they lax? Did they make a mistake? I wonder, as they ask you the question, do you regret? I wonder if they regret that they didn't bring that out. No. Why? Because it was an allegation that is meritless to the point of demagoguery. You are, I don't mean this in any way, because if anybody called me average, I would be upset, but you are a mainstream judge. Your sentencing, I've looked at the data, falls in the mainstream on everything from child sexual assault to all the other issues that people are trying to bring up. Some of these things that are being cast at you that you called George Bush a war criminal, come on, that is painful. Especially because, as you said, the brief change, these are names that you have to put in. And we're talking about a real issue that goes to the core of our values, torture. Barack Obama was named once Bush left office. There is an absurdity to this that is, it is almost comical if it was not so dangerous. Because the next time a judge comes before us on the right or the left that has a body of work like you do, gosh, one of the some performance artists on our side could pull out one of the cases where they were below the sentencing guidelines. Say, for example, it was on something like as horrific as rape that we all agree is horrific. And they could suddenly put themselves as the defense. How dare we put someone who's soft on crime? Well, are you soft on crime? God bless America. I want to tell you, when I look at you, this is why I get emotional. I'm sorry, you're a person that is so much more than your race and gender. You're a Christian, you're a mom, you're an intellect, you love books. But for me, I'm sorry, it's hard for me not to look at you and not see my mom, not to see my cousins, one of them who had to come here and sit behind you. She had to have your back. I see my ancestors and yours. Nobody's going to steal the joy of that woman in the street or the calls that I'm getting or the texts. Nobody's going to steal that joy. You have earned this spot. You are worthy. You are a great American. Your hero is Constance Baker Motley. Mine, she has sat on my desk for my offices that I've held. She's my icon of America. Her name is Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman is one of my heroes because the more I read about this person, the more, she was viciously beaten. Her whole life, she used to fall into spells, cracked skull. She faced starvation, chased by dogs. And when she got to freedom, what did she do? Did she rest? No, she went back. Again and again and again. The sky was full of stars. But she found one that was a harbinger of hope for better days, not just for her and those people that were enslaved, but a harbinger of hope for this country. And she never gave up on America. She fought led troops in the Civil War. She was involved in the suffrage movement. And as I came back from my run after being near assaulted by someone on the street, I thought about her.
Thank you.
And how she looked up. She kept looking up. No matter what they did to her, she never stopped looking up. And that star, it was a harbinger of hope. Today, you're my star. You are my harbinger of hope. This country is getting better and better and better. And when that final vote happens and you ascend onto the highest court in the land, I'm going to rejoice. And I'm going to tell you right now, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, will be better because of you. Thank you.
I mean, dang, that was everything short but the sermon, but I get it. Truly and truly, I get it. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, like I said, if there's anything you can take from that, whenever someone is about to achieve something or it has achieved something, give them their flowers. They deserve it above all else. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I do thank you guys for watching, for liking, for letting people know that we're live and up and running. I certainly appreciate that. Before I do get out of here, guys, some shameless plugging as I usually do. I want to first start with the guys from Geek Salad, R&G Present Geek Salad. You can definitely find them on Facebook as well as their YouTube page you're currently watching right now. A couple of guys I have met a year ago and definitely like talking with them. They do talk about things from pop culture and from things from it and, of course, outside of it through an unfiltered but intelligent way of speaking, open forum. But definitely check those guys out on Facebook as well as YouTube, R&G Present Geek Salad. Also, shout out to my buddy Vaughn. As you can see, he's going to be coming back to podcasting very soon. Vaughn Westman on Facebook, Big BZA down on socials, where you can find the Smoking Trailer Sundays every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Of course, the REF podcast every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. But definitely check him out. Vaughn Westman on Facebook or Big BZA on all socials. Now, as for yours truly, guys, my my IG handle, BlackBox447. You can definitely find me on Instagram as I do post a lot of things, a lot of movie, television, video game, TV show reviews, as well as some gym stuff because, I do a couple push-ups. Also, at the same time, guys, I am all for positivity and pushing people forward because, again, we have had a rough couple of years, and this year of 2022 should be the year of positivity, the year of motivation, because that's how we're gonna get people moving forward. So I like to motivate myself as well as others and really get that movement going because we tried negativity, we've tried just trudging through it. Now we all need to be about uplifting each other and really moving forward is really my goal in this. Now, of course, you can definitely look at the banner that you're seeing there at the bottom. It's also trolling under that, but I made it bigger. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, it will take you to my link tree where you'll be able to see the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, Y'all Friends Podcast. You can definitely like and share from there and actually see every podcast that we've done. And again, let people know about it. Share the word because, again, I'm just trying to get something going as far as showing that the news can be better and also bringing a light to things that you really should care about and really get to know your current events because with every access and resource in the world at your fingertips, whether you're an Android or iPhone or even a Windows user, there's no excuse guys more. We have to be informed. We should be informed. We're informed because that helps us become better. That's the whole idea of this entire podcast. Now, before I do get out of here, guys, I do want to sit there and say above all else, if you haven't already, please get vaccinated. Please get shots. If you can, if you're immunocompromised or at least, do what's best for your situation, as well as still wear your mask. I know the numbers are going down. I know cases are going down. We have been here before. The best way we can make sure those numbers are downtrending is still be vigilant, wear a mask, protect ourselves at all times. Not only does it help the nurses and doctors in the hospital, it also helps those that still go to the hospital for life-saving treatments. I'm talking about those with kidney dialysis, those that need blood transfusion or blood work done, or those with diabetic needs, things of that nature. These people still go to the hospitals to get their life-saving treatment, but sometimes you have to get rescheduled dangerously back because the COVID bed is still taking up space. The less people we have in those hospitals, the sooner those people can get in and get the life-saving treatment that they need to continue their lives. The last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, guys, is all about staying informed. We're not trying to change minds, persuade individuals, or just trying to bring on a way of thinking. We're just doing what the old news stations of the world used to do. Give you all the information, allow you to inform yourself, as well as provide a logical perspective right beside it. We do a lot better as a society when we're informed. We're progressive, we move forward, we try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like elect our first Madam Vice President, and hopefully very soon have our very first Black female African-American Supreme Court Justice. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That is why half the time we are asking ourselves, why do we find ourselves in the same situation as we before? Why is everything going up by our paycheck? Why are we still electing the same different officials, but it's the same old game? And more importantly, we're asking ourselves how the Frack we got here. Thank you all guys for watching. If you're watching this on the playback, please comment if it's live. We still want to know everything that your opinion on everything that was discussed tonight. As far as that's today. As far as that, guys, please take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this.